Let's get back to business here. Alright, so we're rewinding the clock once again and going over another one of these trade, return, finalize kinds of topics over here, because these are one of the most interesting things I think you can go out there and talk about as a fan of hockey. So, today we're talking about James Neal. You know who James Neal is. He's the real deal. And he's a guy who made himself a pretty well-established home in the NHL. Drafted in 2005, 33rd overall in the second round by the Dallas Stars, the Whitby, Ontario native made himself a home in the National Hockey League, where he was one of the most consistent goal scorers the league had seen. Now, he didn't really do too much else, but James Neal was one of these only players in the league who had scored, 10 straight 20-goal years, split between the Stars, the Predators, the Pittsburgh Penguins, and the Vegas Golden Knights. James Neal was one of these guys that went out there, and you could just rely on him to score 20-plus goals in a season. Sometimes he got more than that. He had a career high of 40 goals in 2011-2012 with the Penguins, and 81 points in that year, too. Back then, Neal was seen as one of these perennial, really good complementary pieces. However, after the Vegas Golden Knights year, where he was picked off in the expansion draft and sent over to the brand new team, taking them to the Stanley Cup Finals as one of the top point guys on that squad, James Neal went over to Calgary. And things were not really all too great in Calgary, mostly because this is the year that his streak got snapped. He went over to Calgary and signed a 5-year deal, that in which was worth $5.75 million a season, and a lot of people right away were like, okay, that's... it's a contract, it's a big one, but you're getting a guy who will probably net you 20 goals a year, so you can go out there and expect that. But that's not what happened in 2018-19. In 2018-19, James Neal with the Calgary Flames scored 19 points and 7 goals in 63 games played on a Flames team that made the playoffs. Yes, they did that. But it really wasn't because James Neal went out there and did his part. He had the top goal guy on the team, Johnny Gaudreau, 36 goals, Monahan had 34, Tkachuk had 34 too, Elias Lindholm had 27, and Mikhail Backlund had 21. You had James Neal also on this team, not pulling his load, and not doing what we thought James Neal would do, which is why a year after that $5 million+ contract was signed, the Calgary Flames traded James Neal to a division rival. They traded him to the Edmonton Oilers for another player who was also making a boatload of money and who wasn't living up to expectations. The trade went all the way back on July 19th as follows. The Calgary Flames traded James Neal to the Edmonton Oilers for Milan Lucic with 12.5% salary retained and a 2021 conditional third-round pick. Now, Lucic back then was not really all too hot either. He had spent a year with the Kings and then he went over to the Edmonton Oilers. He was a 50-point guy with the Oilers when debuting with that squad, but he started to decline year after year. Sure, the physicality was still there, the hits, the penalty minutes, they were all still there, but the point production that we saw as a consistent factor with Lucic's game back in Boston and with the Kings wasn't really there anymore. So, with $750,000 retained, the Flames acquired Lucic for James Neal. Now, Neal went on to really revitalize his career in Edmonton. He had a 19-goal year in 55 games played before everything shut down, and in the bubble, he had 3 points in 4 games played. He was fantastic, and honestly one of the better players on the Oilers who didn't really do anything else aside from scoring. He scored 11 goals in 8 games to start off the year, with a 4-goal game thrown in there too. So, Neal was good. Then Neal didn't really do all too well the year after. I mean, he had 10 points in 29 games in 2020-2021, which is not terrible, but it was to the point where this guy was making so much money. The Oilers were like, okay, we're kind of cap-strapped here, and they ended up buying out James Neal. The $5.75 million AAV contract was bought out, even though it had 2 more seasons on it, and now Neal's a free agent who is looking for his next line of work. As for Milan Lucic, you can find him still today with the Calgary Flames. He put up 23 points in 56 games played. There was a period throughout the past, calendar year and a bit, where Milan Lucic was legitimately being fantastic. In the bubble last year, he had 6 points in 10 games, and I remember when everybody was talking about how good Milan Lucic was playing for this Calgary Flames team despite being a total bust, making $6 million a year from the Edmonton system. However, that's neither here nor there because we're focusing on the trade itself. Lucic is still a part of the Flames, Neal is a part of the free agent market now as the Oilers got rid of that, but what happened with the other things? Well, the third-round pick that the Flames acquired in the James Neal trade had a condition on it. The condition was this: the Calgary Flames would receive the third-round pick from the Oilers if James Neal, firstly, scored 21 or more goals, and secondly, scored 10 goals more than Milan Lucic during the 2019-20 season, or at least that's what the wording says to me. If somebody wants to correct me if I'm not right about that, please let me know in the comments if that analysis of this little sentence here is correct. But because the season was shortened, the NHL deemed the Oilers to transferring a third-round pick in either 2021 or 2020. The Oilers decided to transfer a 2021 third. Now, what exactly did the Calgary Flames do with that 2021 third? Well, they didn't actually use it. They sent it away to the LA Kings. They actually traded down in the draft, because in the 2021 NHL Entry Draft, that Edmonton third was 84th overall. The Kings traded away the 89th overall pick, as well as the 168th overall pick, in exchange for that third-round pick from the Edmonton Oilers that was initially acquired in the James Neal trade. 84th overall came around, and the LA Kings selected from SKA St. Petersburg of the KHL, Kirill Kirasanov. He's a guy who in 2021 had 3 points in 29 games played. He's a defenseman, by the way, so don't be afraid of these numbers over here. He's a guy that made himself known as a pretty interesting prospect. If you read the scouting report here, he can pierce through neutral zone defenses, challenge defenders one-on-one, and bump the puck laterally to a teammate skating in a nearby corridor to win the offensive blue line. He also does this repetitively. Once his team establishes itself in the opposing end, he turns mostly into a puck distributor, moving the puck laterally and taking his chances to shoot. He's a physically stronger than most kind of defenseman, and he might have the best defensive stick in the entire 2002 class. This was said in August of 2019 by Draft in Europe. So this is a pretty good pick right here. For the LA Kings, it's one of those things where it's like if you really like a guy and you're not sure he's going to be there when you pick, you trade up to get him. And that's what they did to get Kirill Kirasanov. We know the Kings, they kind of do need some more defenseman prospects and some security long-term. Tobias Bjornfot's good. I like Sean Durzi, but the Kings really did good work this year at the draft, boosting their defensive core with Brandt, Clarke in the top 10, as well as a few other guys, not to mention Kirill Kirasanov as well. I like the pick a lot. As for the Calgary Flames, though, they traded away that pick they acquired in the Edmonton deal to the Kings in exchange for the 89th overall pick, which was originally Toronto's that was acquired in the Jack Campbell trade, as well as LA's own 6th-round pick. With the 89th overall selection, the Calgary Flames selected from the Halifax Mooseheads, Cameron Why Not, a guy whose name you've definitely heard memed before. He is a defenseman out of the QMJHL, 6'1", 181, left-handed, who put up 23 points in 34 games this most recent QMJHL season. Now, funny names aside, Cameron Why Not is a pretty interesting NHL prospect. If you go over to Dobber Prospects right here, you can read the scouting report. He's a solid two-way defender with untapped offensive upside that could see him blossom into an effective NHL blue liner. A smooth skater who utilizes good gap control and an active stick when defending in transition. He was a key player for the Mooseheads in his draft year in 2021, playing regularly on both special teams and averaging over 22 minutes a game. He's been fairly productive as well, coming in just behind 2021 first-round pick Justin Barron in scoring among Mooseheads defenders. The Calgary Flames also used the last pick they acquired in this trade, 168th overall from the Kings, to acquire Jack Beck. A guy who played in the OHL last year, but who didn't really do anything this year because the OHL didn't play. He had 0 points, 0 games played. Last year, though, as an underage first-year OHLer, he had 19 points in 56 games played. He's 5'11", 161. We'll go over to the scouting report here. James Boyd, the Ottawa 67's GM, says that Jack Beck is a very intelligent and versatile player who can help our team in a number of ways. Prospect Pipeline says that the youngster boasts quick feet and the strength and acceleration necessary to reach his top speed in a few quick strides. Once at top speed, Beck remains fluid and agile on his skates, allowing him to change direction as needed while avoiding his opposition while in control of the puck. He's a guy who is really just a flyer. I mean, he's a 6th-round pick who didn't play last year, so we'll see where exactly Beck goes. But that is the entire story of the James Neal trade. James Neal was signed by the Flames in 2018. The Flames then traded Neal for Milan Lucic and a conditional 3rd-round pick, that in which was granted. The Flames used that 3rd-round pick and sent it over to LA, where they acquired 2 more draft picks that were all used used in this year's draft. Talk to me in the comments what you thought about the James Neal trade return being finalized. I hope you enjoyed this video. Trolls and I. Don't worry, more videos like this are coming soon because I think these are really interesting to make. And bye.